I've been dailying this over the last few weeks. This is the new Ford Mustang, and it is the last V8 affordable sports car on the market today. I've come to one of my favorite roads to really just soak in this experience and share how glad I am that this car still exists. All right, away we go. Listen to that thundering V8, 5-litre Coyote V8, and it's paired with this lovely 6-speed manual transmission that I've really been enjoying. So I've had this car now for nearly 3 weeks. Whew. I'm still working on my shifting. It's actually my first experience dailying and living with a manual car, and also a car that has a V8 engine. So it's been such a fun experience. Just, you know, you start it up in the morning and you get the big V8 rumble, which is something I'm just not used to. So it still makes me giggle and smile every time I turn the car on. And then you have all the different exhaust modes as well. You've got quiet mode, which I used this morning to get myself out of my neighborhood nicely. But then even the normal mode is ruckus. Sport mode gets even crazier, and then you have track mode as well, which is super cool. So yeah, I've really enjoyed experiencing a V8 engine and living with a manual transmission. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be to live with a manual. So many people are going like all automatic, you know. It's very hard to find a manual car nowadays, you know, because automatics, they're just easy, you know. But the thing with this manual gearbox is it's got hill hold assist, and it also has, you'll hear it in a second here, it has auto rev matching, which for me, as someone who's really just starting out my manual driving journey, it's fantastic because it means that I nail those downshifts, and then I can enjoy the car. And then, you know, in future, I can take the training wheels off and actually try and drive it properly. You know, I'm just not there yet. I'm just, you know, early days still, trying to take it easy. So I've really loved it over the last few weeks. It's been such a cool car to daily, and now getting it out here onto this twisty roads, it's actually come alive. Around town, it feels quite heavy, and it really feels like a big brute. But now that I've got it in sport mode with the stiff dampers and the sharper steering and the big wide open exhaust, everything seems to have kind of come alive a little bit, and it really feels super dynamic in the corners. Like there's very little body roll because it has that MagneRide suspension package that comes with the performance pack here, which is as standard in Australian cars, which is super cool. Hit another downshift. I just love it. I just love it. And I think experiences like this in 2025 are so rare and special. So it's such an important thing to take your time with it and seek out these sorts of things. Like as petrol heads, you know, seeking out these experiences. And it's so rare. I think, you know, this is the most affordable sports car with a V8 engine and a manual gearbox. I honestly think it's the only one, because the Camaro has now since ended production, and I'm not sure if there's any plans on making another one. Here we're stuck behind some slow moving traffic, but I'm not sure if there's any plans to make another one. Then you have things that are smaller engines, so things like the BMW M2, which in Australia is kind of a competitor. Obviously, you know, a little bit more polished, a little bit more, I guess, refined, so it's up a step. You have things like the A90 Supra, which you can get with a manual gearbox, but again, all these options are straight sixes with turbos. Then you have the Nissan Z, once again, V6 twin turbo. Even something like, I don't know, this is a bit of a left field option, but something like the GR Yaris and GR Corolla, with that manual gearbox and the switchable all-wheel drive system, so you can do a bit of rear-wheel drive action, you know. So there are some cars around, but there's nothing that offers you this big powerhouse brute of a V8 up front with 480 horsepower, which is absolutely insane. It's been so fun, you know, rolling onto the power and the torque as well. You just seem to have endless torque in any gear. Wow, this guy's going so slowly. Would I have one though? I think that's a question. So in Australia, these are about 100 grand new, so 100 grand AUD. I'm not sure the pricing over in the US. And then you could get used ones all day for around 75 to 80 grand, maybe less. And I think as they start to depreciate a little bit more, as all new cars do, we'll start to see these get even more affordable. And I think, you know, when compared to something like a BMW M2, I'm sure this is probably more reliable with that naturally aspirated V8. Let's do a U-turn and head back in. With that naturally aspirated V8, and also here we go. Woohoo! Woo! And then look, just around the corner, these seats, I don't even have the bucket seats, but they don't, like, I'm not sliding around. But yeah, I think this would honestly be, like, I haven't obviously experienced it, but a very reliable package. Woohoo! A very reliable package with this engine and transmission, and, you know, because it's a Ford, parts are a little bit cheaper. They're, you know, so accessible. There's so many Mustangs going around. So I just think as a car to jump in and drive on the weekends, and then you could even daily this car quite easily. The fuel tank is a little bit small and the fuel efficiency is not that great, but that's not what this car's about. You know, it's about miles per gallon, not about miles per gallon. Woo! So yeah, it's a tough ask. Like, would I pick this over something like a BMW M2? Probably not. I don't think this car suits me personally, but have I enjoyed this experience, and has it given me a new respect for Mustangs? Absolutely. And if you're someone, like, I was thinking about who's the kind of perfect customer for this car. It's someone that already has, like, maybe they've got a Ford Ranger and they're already in the Ford family, and they're just like they want a sports car for the weekend or something like that. That would honestly be perfect. And then obviously anyone that wants that combination of V8 up front, manual gearbox. If you're trying to get that for under 100K in Australia, your options are incredibly limited. You obviously have things like the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, which is, you know, pushing 20 years old, and that thing would cost an arm and a leg to service and be an absolute nightmare to live with. So yeah, I think this is such a special automotive experience in 2025, and we got to give mad respect to Ford for continuing to put this out and develop this car. The new styling looks awesome. The interior looks great. The tech's fantastic. Everything just works. And then you get that naturally aspirated V8 with a manual transmission. I'm going to keep banging on about it. So it's just been so cool. Once again, stuck behind some slow moving traffic. Let's slow down a little bit and build a gap, and we can just kind of cruise a little. So that's my experience with the new 2025 Ford Mustang. And I've got to say, I really, really appreciate Ford and other brands like Toyota and Honda and all of these guys that are continuing to put out cars like this and give people like us, you know, petrol heads, experiences that gets us hopeful and gets us excited in a world where it's so politicized and there's so many agendas. And I'm not sure how much longer Ford will be able to continue putting this car out, but let's hope there's a few more years still left to go. So if you have one of these, or if you've got any sports car, make sure you get out and drive it, enjoy it, and I hope to see you in the next video very soon.